Welcome back, class, to the fourth chapter of Sankar IAS Environment Aquatic Ecosystem. So, if you are facing any problem regarding government examination, you can visit our websites and you can contact us on WhatsApp also. So, let's start the chapter. So, what is aquatic ecosystem? First, we should know about the ecosystem. Ecosystem consisting of water as the main habitat, which is known as aquatic ecosystem. And aquatic ecosystem classified based on their salt content. It is classified into three categories. So first category is freshwater ecosystem. The salt content of freshwater body is very low, always less than 5 ppt. Ppt means parts per thousand. For example, lakes, ponds, springs, streams, and rivers. Then second one is marine ecosystem. The water bodies containing salt concentration equal to or above of the seawater, that is 35 ppt. Equal to or above. This is the sign of above and this is the sign of equal to. For example, shallow seas and open ocean. And the third one is brackish water. And brackish water have the salt contained between 5 to 35 ppt. For example, estuaries, salt marshes, mangroves, and forests. Now we have some aquatic organisms, means what kind of organisms you found in the aquatic ecosystem. So the aquatic organisms are classified on the basis of their zone of occurrence and their ability to cross these zones. So the first one is Newton, means these are unattached organisms which live at the air water interface, such as floating plants. Like we have the water here and the atmosphere. So these plants, that is Newton, remains on the surface of the water, that they have the contact with the air water interface. This is the water and air interface. And examples like are floating plants. Some organisms spend most of their lives on the top of the air water interface, such as water striders, and others spend most of their time just beneath the air water interface and obtain most of their food within the water. For example, beetles and back swimmers. Second one is periphyton. These organisms which remain attached to stems and leaves of rooted plants or substances, emerging above the bottom mud, such as algae and their associated groups of animals. Means these organisms are remain attached to stems and the leaves of the rooted plants, and substances emerge above the bottom mud. And the third one is plankton. This group includes both microscopic plants like algae and the animals like protozoa, found in all aquatic ecosystems except certain swift moving waters. Means they do not found in the moving water. Fourth one is necton. Necton is a group which contains animals which are swimmers. Means they are relatively large and powerful, as they have to overcome the water currents. They flow with the water currents. And the animals range in size from the swimming insects about 2 mm long to the largest animal and the blue whale. means the example of the necton, they are the vary in the size having 2 to 2 mm to the blue whale, which is largest one. Fifth one is benthos. The benthing organisms are those found living in the bottom of the water, at the bottom of the water, and practically every aquatic ecosystem contains well developed benthos. Now we have some factors which limits the productivity of aquatic animals. The first one is oxygen. Oxygen and sunlight are most important limiting factors of aquatic ecosystems, whereas moisture and temperature are the main limiting factors of terrestrial ecosystem. There is the difference, means the two terms, that is moisture and temperature, are the limiting factors of terrestrial ecosystem, and in the aquatic ecosystem we have the sunlight and oxygen are the most important limiting factors. So first one is sunlight. Sunlight penetrates rapidly, diminishes in as it passes down the column of water. Means as it passes down to the water, it disappears. And the depth of which light penetrates a lake determines the extent of plant distribution. So, based on the light penetration and the plant distribution, they are classified as photic and aphotic zones. So, the photic zone is the upper layer of the aquatic ecosystem up to which light penetrates and within which photosynthetic activity is confined. Means it lies to the upper layer of aquatic ecosystem. This is photic zone. And at the photic zone, photosynthesis and respiration activity takes place. And photic zone is the lighted and usually well mixed portion that extends from the lake surface down to the where light level is 1%. And second one is aphotic zone, means lower level of the aquatic ecosystem where light penetrates and plant growth are restricted. This is a photic zone, lower level of the water surface, and plant growths are restricted, forms the aquatic ecosystem. Here only we have the respiration activity takes place, and at the photic zone both respiration and photosynthesis activities takes place. The next one is dissolved oxygen. In the aquatic ecosystem, oxygen is dissolved in water, whereas its concentration varies constantly depending on factors that influence the input and output of oxygen in the water. So, in the fresh water, average concentration of dissolved oxygen is 0.0010% by weight in the fresh water, and which is 150 times lower than the concentration of oxygen in the equivalent volume of air. So the oxygen enters the aquatic ecosystem through the water air interface and by the photosynthetic activities of aquatic plants. Therefore, quantity of dissolved oxygen present in the ecosystem depends on the rate at which two processes occur, and these two processes are air water interface and the photosynthesis activities. So the dissolved oxygen escapes the water body through the water interface and through respiration of organisms. And when the amount of dissolved oxygen retained in water is also influenced by temperature. And there is a fact that oxygen is less soluble in warm water. Warm water also enhances decomposer activity. Therefore, increasing the temperature of a water body increases the rate at which oxygen is depleted from the water, because increasing of the temperature enhances the decomposer activity. And when the dissolved oxygen level falls below 3 to 5 parts per million, many aquatic organisms are likely to die. The other factors are transparency. Transparency affects the extent of light penetration, means suspended particle matter such as clay, silt, phytoplankton, etc., make water opaque, and it limits the extent of light penetration, and photosynthetic activity is difficult to take place. Second factor is temperature. Uh, the water the water temperature changes less rapidly than the temperature of air, because water has considerably high specific heat than air. That is, larger amount of heat energy must be added to or taken away from water to raise or lower its temperature. Now, lake ecology. What is lake? Any body of uh, any body of standing water, any body of standing water, generally large enough in area and depth, and irrespective of its hydrology, ecology, and other characteristics, is generally known as the lake. So a lake ecology in the lake ecology we will discuss about the aging of lakes. Aging of lakes is the nutrient enrichment of the lakes, promotes the growth of algae, aquatic plants, and various fauna, and this process is known as natural eutrophication. And similarly, nutrient enrichment of lakes at an accelerated rate Nutrient enrichment of lakes at an accelerated rate is caused by the activities, and consequent aging phenomena is known as cultural eutrophication. So, what is aging of lakes? Is that, like any organisms, lakes are born as they originate by various geological and geomorphic events, and grow with time to change in various morphological and functional characteristics, and eventually die. They receive their water, lakes, they receive their water from the surface runoff, and along with it various chemical substances and mineral water eroded with the land over periods spanning millennia. Aging occurs, means the with the surface runoff we have too much discharge from the groundwater, and this occurs as the lake accumulate minerals and organic matter, and it gradually increases and get filled up with these materials. So in India, natural lakes mostly lie in Himalayan region, and in the floodplains of Indus, Ganga, and Brahmaputra. Lake Sudarshan in Gujarat's Girnar area was perhaps the oldest man-made lake in India, and lakes are classified on the basis of their water chemistry, and based on the level of salinity they classified into freshwater, brackish, that is saline lakes. So in the fresh water, on the basis of their nutrient content, they categorized on the basis of the nutrient content. First we have oligotrophic. Oligotrophic means it have very low nutrients. Oligotrophic, very low nutrients. Then second one is mesotrophic, which have moderate nutrients, and the last one is eutrophic, means highly nutrient rich. So how can we remove the nutrients from a lake? There are many methods. First one is flushing with nutrient poor waters. It flushes out from it, and deep water abstraction on site, P elimination by flocculation or flotation with water or backflow. Then on site algae removal by filters, on site algae skimming and separate thickening and artificial mixing, destratification, harvest of fishes and macrophytes, and sludge removal. Next we have eutrophication. So the eutrophication, the word taken from Greek word eutrophia, which means adequate and healthy nutrition. So, eutrophication is a syndrome of ecosystem which responds to addition of artificial or natural substances, or such as natural substances are nitrates and phosphates through fertilizer, sewage, etc., that fertilize the aquatic ecosystem. The growth of green algae, which see in the lake surface layer, is physical identification of eutrophication. Some algae and blue green bacteria on the axis ions and population occurs cover almost entire surface layer, which is known as algal bloom. This growth is unsustainable, and algal bloom covers the surface layer. It restricts the penetration of sunlight and diffusion of gas from atom and oxygen. That we all know that oxygen is required by all respiring animals in the water, and it is replenished by the diffusion and photosynthesis of green plant. So for this process, nitrogen testing is a technique to find the optimum amount of fertilizer required for the crop plants. It will reduce the amount of nitrogen lost to the surrounding area. Harmful algal blooms. We have some also harmful algal blooms, and these are the algae or phytoplanktons that are microscopic organisms and can be found naturally in coastal waters. They are major producers of oxygen and food for many animals that live in these waters. And when environmental conditions are favorable for their development, these cells may multiply rapidly and form high numbers of cells, and this is called algal bloom. And a bloom often result in a color change in water, and algal blooms can be of any color, but the most ones are red and brown. And most algal blooms are not harmful, but some produce toxins and do affect fish, birds, marine mammals, and humans. There is a question that why red tide is misnomer. So red tide is a common name for such phenomena which where certain phytoplankton species contain pigments and bloom such that the human eye perceives the water to be discolored. So the blooms can appear greenish, brown, even reddish orange depending upon the type of organisms and the type of water and on the type of water and the concentration of organisms. And the term red tide is thus a misnomer because blooms are not always red. They are not associated with tides and they are usually not harmful, and some species can be harmful or dangerous at low cell concentration that do not discolor the water. They are scientifically referred as harmful algal blooms. And what are the causes of these blooms? There are two common causes. First one is nutrient concentration or nutrient enrichment and warm water. Nutrient enrichment, how this causes the blooms, that nutrient enrichment of water, especially phosphates and near nitrogen, is often result of pollution and cause algal blooms. And water temperature increases of the water temperature occurrence of algal blooms, as usually the warm temperature of water being conducive to the blooms. Wetland ecosystem. So wetlands are the areas intermediate in character between deep water and terrestrial habitats, and also transitional in nature and often located between them. And these habitats experience a periodic flooding from adjacent deep water habits and therefore supports the plants and animals specifically and adapted to such shallow for flooding or waterlogging. And we have some examples like areas of marshes, fen, peatland water, where natural and artificial, permanent or temporary water is static or flowing, fresh brackish or salt, including areas or marine water depth of the which at low areas does not exceed 6 meter, means we have the depth of the wetland that is not exceeding the 6 meters. So we have classification of wetland. So the classification of wetland is, we have inland wetland and the coastal wetland. In the inland wetland we have two types, man-made and natural. In the natural we have lakes, ponds, oxbow lakes, waterlogged, seasonal, swamp and marshes. In the man-made we have reservoirs, tanks, waterlogged, ash pond. And in the coastal wetland, again we have two types, natural and man-made. In the natural we have estuary, lagoon, creek, backwater, bay, coral reef, tidal flat, mangroves and salt marshes. And in the man-made, salt pans and aqua culture. So these are the classifications. Now we have the functions of wetlands. What are the functions of wetlands? That the habitat to the aquatic flora and fauna as well as numerous species of birds including migratory birds, means wetlands provides the place to live many aquatic flora and fauna. It filtration the sediments and nutrients from the surface water, and the addition of recycling and the water purification, flood mitigation, maintenance of stream flow, groundwater recharging, provide drinking water, fish fodder, fuel, and control rate of runoff in urban area, and buffer shorelines against erosion, comprise an important resource for sustainable tourism and stabilization of local climate, and the supporting specific diversity means we can see the supporting diversity in the wetlands. There are some reasons for the depletions of the wetlands, and the reasons are conversion of lands for agriculture, overgrazing, removal of sand from beds, aquaculture, habitat destruction and deforestation, pollution, domestic waste, agriculture runoff, industrial effluents, climate change. So we will back with the second part of fourth chapter. Thank you, class.